Welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I am your host, Josh G. And today, my guest is a man who does a little bit of everything. He's a dancer, teacher, writer, actor. Please welcome to the show, Chip Sebastian.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh. I'm really glad to be here, man. I like your show. It's fun.
Hey, I appreciate that. It means a lot, man. So I know you're currently working on a new short film. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a short film that I wrote. Right now, it's called Per Annum, as in every year per annum, and it's a film that we're doing here in Lexington. Yeah, I've got old friend of mine, Fred Zieglin, who's been an actor here forever and ever, alongside me, and then Don Samandel, who lives here in Lexington. And Don has a lot of experience. I mean, he worked with Betty Davis, worked with I don't know how many Oliver Stone movies he worked on. I mean, I know he worked on Born on the 4th of July. Yeah, he's just worked with a lot of people, and he's a good guy. But anyway, we're kind of like all getting older and all that, and we're just like, man, let's just do something fun, instead of another diaper commercial or whatever, and so I wrote the script, and we've all been kind of putting in on it and rehashing it, and yeah, it's a little serial killer piece. It's a little different than your average fare. It's not like a Criminal Minds episode or something. And but I've just been having a ball, man. We shot it out at a local cemetery here the first day. We've got a couple more days to shoot, and Don will probably cut it. And then I've got this friend of mine, Trip Bratton. Yeah, for your viewers, I highly recommend checking out any of these guys. Trip Bratton, 2 P's, Trip. Awesome music, phenomenal. He teaches at a college in Berea, Kentucky, and he's just unreal. But anyway, so that's what's happening. It's great to have a lot of people working on it who have so much experience, and like I said, it's things are a little different, at 50. You're just like, let's just have some fun, man.
There you go.
It's like, I'm not trying to be whatever, or I don't feel okay about myself. I'm 20 years old. Oh God. Let me prove myself constantly. We all know that guy, right? So, but anyway, we've been having a lot of fun. So yeah, thank you for letting me mention it on here, though, and it'll probably be put on. Not probably, it will be put on YouTube, maybe on Vimeo, and we'll certainly shop it around to some of the short film festivals that'll be coming up. So, oh, and my wife Astrid is in it too. I can't forget to mention my wife. She's actually in Germany right now visiting her dad, but she plays a CIA or sort of special agent type, and we actually looked at some of the footage today that we had shot, and boy, she's in the role. You know what I'm saying? Ready to draw the gun, and so. But yeah, anyway, it's gonna be good, man. I hope maybe it after it's out, I could swing by the show or something, or just drop you a link to it or something like that, and you could have a look at it and see what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so you have brought me. This is one of the reasons why I do the show. It gives me the reason to watch movies I haven't seen before.
Okay.
And so you brought me a movie I haven't seen before, and it's one of a filmmaker that I am getting closer to going down that rabbit hole anyway, because I'm in the process of finishing all of Twin Peaks, and then I'm just going to dive into the whole filmography.
Well, what a great place to be, man. Yeah.
We're going to one of, I don't know, probably his third film, feature film maybe, but we're going back to 1984, David Lynch's Dune. All right, so when did you first see this?
In 1984.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Actually, the way it happened for me with Dune was my mom would take me to PG movies from when I was very young. See, back then, like they didn't institute the PG-13 thing until somewhere in like the mid 80s, somewhere in there. And there were R ratings and X ratings occasionally, but the thing is people would sneak their kids in or let them go in all the time. It just wasn't patrolled as much. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when Dune came out in '84, I was very deep into comic books. And there was a wonderful place here in town called the Comic Connection. You know, back in the days when you couldn't get them online or any of that. I mean, you went in. I mean, this place smelled like musty old pulp. You know, you'd go in and you'd open up the bags and be, oh man, it's so badass. You know, and you know, you'd be like trying to save up money for, you know, the next X-Men copy or whatever. You know. Anyway, I was in there and they had a little thing about Dune. I had no idea what Dune was. And so I was like, man, this looks really cool. And at one of our local malls, Turfland Mall, which is no longer here, and the two men who ran Comic Connection are no longer with us, Earl Boggs and Bill Click. They were great guys. They had at Turfland Mall an opening of Dune. And back then, you know, of course, you wouldn't know how a film was for quite a while. You know, it used to be many years ago that when a blockbuster or a big budget film came out, which Dune certainly qualifies for, it was like about a $46 million budget in '84.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's kind of like, you know, probably 200+ million by today's standards. But when it came out, it was predicted to be a huge monster runaway hit. Some of it was because Lynch was so hot. You know, he had won an Oscar for The Elephant Man.
Right.
You know, and Eraserhead was really more of a cult thing already. You know, it wasn't like you'd take it, you know, the family out for it or something, but but it was definitely very well known in sort of cult film circles. And so I saw this thing at the Comic Connection, and I told my mom I really wanted to go. She dropped me off. And I mean, I so wish I still had this thing. But when I went into the theater, they had this, it was like just a sheet, like an 8.5 by 11, but it was kind of like a, it had like a plastic sheeting on it, you know,
okay.
almost like not like regular paper, but like it had been coated, and it was gray, and it had listed on it all of the characters in Dune, and then said who they were, and you know, and so you'd have like, you know, Baron Harkonnen, you know, and Paul Atreides, and you know, you had all of them listed. And I looked at this thing, I was like, man, wow, this is a new thing. What the hell is this? You know, but what it was, they were really trying to lay it out for you like this thing you were getting ready to get hit with, because there's just so many characters. I mean, there's a lot to take in. And of course, the film of Dune was kind of a compression of the mainly first 3 books that Herbert had written, right? And so it was really way more expansive than the film was, even, you know, the universe of it, I mean.
Okay.
But it was still a lot for people to take in. I mean, it was kind of like, you know, if you saw, you know, all 3 of the first 3 Star Wars movies kind of, you know, crunched together, right? And so, but I looked at this thing and I was like, I don't know what the hell this means, you know. So, but then, you know, when I saw the film, man, I walked out of the theater and I was just like, God, man, I'm just like, I don't know, that hit something deep in me, man. It really did. Now, you know, it's one of those movies where, you know, you look at it 30, how many years later, and as an adult, and you're kind of like, the hell was I thinking, you know? You know, because it was just, you know, it's cheesy, you know, but we all love cheese, you know, and when it's good cheese, you know, we don't want crap, you know, but when it's good cheese, it's good cheese. And Dune still really is some really good cheese, you know. But I absolutely loved it, and I remember we had our first VHS player. My dad was a radio and TV repairman, so we had like all kinds of electronic stuff. We had cable before most people because he actually built a parabolic dish to pick up Showtime and HBO in the late 70s before you could actually get a box from the cable company.
Wow.
So I was very excited as a young man because I was watching like, skin flicks on HBO and Cinemax and, trying to tune it in and there's snow on it, and I'm going, what's that, and parents coming in the room and I'm flipping it back to the Mickey Mouse Club, and crap like that. But, but anyway, we had these VCRs and it was on VHS. I first got a copy of Dune back in the days when you rented videos, you'd actually go to the video store and you go, man, I sure hope they have a copy of Dune in. Of course now it's like, let me hit this button and Dune's on,
Yep.
But back then it was like you really had to go hunting for stuff. And,
yeah.
In some ways it was nicer because you know how it is now. It's like there's just too many options almost, man. I mean, and I mean, I do prefer it to going out and going on the hunt and paying more and all that, but it was just different, But anyway, so I got a copy of the film, and man, I wore that tape out. I mean, I just watched the hell out of it, and so that's kind of how that happened. And then not long after that, I thought, I really want to try to read the books, and I read the first one. I was like, man, this is awesome. And went all through, the six main ones that Frank Herbert had written. And of course, his son, I think, has done quite a few past that. He's built on a bunch of them. And honestly, I haven't read a lot of those. I think I might have started on one, but I'm not saying it sucks because, I haven't read them. I don't want to say that, but it just wasn't the same,
Right.
I mean, it's sort of like when Tolkien's son took over and tried to continue that stuff, some of it might be pretty good, but it's just not the same.
Right.
And
I see what you're saying. It's just, yeah.
So, but anyway, that happened, and along with that, I kind of developed sort of an obsession about Lynch, just in terms of being a filmmaker and being weird, and and I was always kind of the weird or different dude, right? Sort of he's Chip, he's such a big guy, and I'm like 6'3", right? And I was like 6'3" in 10th grade or whatever.
Oh.
And and so I was just being badgered constantly to play football and do sports, and I was overweight as a kid, which got me into martial arts, right? That was one of the things that got me. But I mean, I'd be like fighting the coaches, like, look, I don't give a shit about football, I just don't care, but I was too busy, listening to I mean, all kinds of The Cure and I was busy listening to a lot of stuff that most people my age were not listening. I was listening to a lot of the stuff they were listening to too. I mean, I love Floyd and AC/DC and Zepp and all that stuff, but I was listening to a lot of other stuff that, like I couldn't really talk about too much with a lot of friends because they're kind of like, why are you listening to that? You're not in the in crowd, Don't you want to be a winner and listen to what we listen to? But my interests have always gotten into some really different areas, and that includes film, TV shows, dance, martial arts, certainly literature, and it's just where I am with stuff, and I mean, I don't judge any of it, it's just, it is what it is. But yeah, like, if you took me to a football game or something, I'd just be
bored,
dying to get out of there. Yeah. I mean, it's just not my deal, And it's like the one sport that I actually can watch a little bit and I'm entertained by is soccer, European football,
Right.
but most of the rest of it, I just don't get it, man. But that's okay. There's a lot of stuff I do, and a lot of people are going, I just don't get it, man. And it's okay,
That's it. Each their own. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's honestly, that right there is for me, the best thing about getting older is you just really don't, for me, I don't know about everybody else, but I just really don't care as much what people think about me, man. I'm just glad to be who I am, and I'm glad to be alive.
There you go. That's a good
It
attitude to have.
really is true. I mean, and man, I heard a great thing Christopher Walken had said in an interview a few weeks back. I mean, I heard it a few weeks back. He may have said it a long time ago, but it was that he was like, if you knew how quickly people forgot you when you're dead, you wouldn't spend any time trying to impress them.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah, it's true though, isn't it? When
Yeah.
you really think about it that way, I'm like, that's really right. But anyway, I hope I answered sufficiently about Dune.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't want to drag on and on.
Oh no, we're gonna keep this moving. So, what I want you to do for anyone that has not seen Dune, tell them a brief synopsis of what this thing's all about.
Well, the film of it.
The film, yes.
Yeah. The film of it as it stands. Once again, there are some other plots and subplots that are going on in the books that you just couldn't get everything on film with. But Dune opens up with Paul Atreides, played by Kyle MacLachlan in his first film role. He was an actor in Washington State, and he was actually chosen out of a cattle call, out of a random audition by Lynch. And I mean, it's like, talk about the biggest break you've ever had in your life, right? So, it's like, yeah, you've never been in a film before, but we want to put you in a $46 million movie,
And you're the star.
Yeah, and you're the star. Are you ready? So, but I thought it was a great choice. I thought he was great in it. But yeah, with Paul Atreides, they are getting ready to move from House Atreides, where they are on their planet, and they're getting ready to move, and it really, the film doesn't explain a whole lot of that, but in the books it's really about trying to unify the houses, or it's more political. And Frank Herbert was really big into meteorology and geology,
Okay.
and that's why you get all these really rich descriptions and differences between the terrains. So, when they finally do arrive on Arrakis, there isn't any water, of course.
Right.
And water is precious. I mean, it's probably more precious than gold would be, for where we are now, in our places in time, and so everything revolves around that idea. But it becomes very apparent that Paul, who has been groomed meticulously by Gurney Halleck, who was played in the film by Patrick Stewart,
Yeah.
Our old Jean-Luc, our friend. He's been groomed by him, among others, and Thufir Hawat to become, the next leader. So they've been grooming him all his life. So he's tested in a number of ways by not only his mentors, but also by the Bene Gesserit sisterhood, who his mother has been part of for a long time. And played wonderfully, I thought, by Francesca Annis in the film. Francesca Annis was actually a very well-known British actress. She's still around, but she's a very well-known British actress in her own right. And just as a side note, for those who are into Shakespeare, if you can get a hold of the John Finch Roman Polanski directed 1971 version of Macbeth. One of my favorite Shakespeare on films. She plays Lady Macbeth in that film.
Wow, okay.
And that is a very dark Macbeth. That film was done within a couple of years of the Tate murders, of Polanski's wife being murdered and everything. Which it seemed like for a long time, like when I was growing up, everybody knew about that. Then it seemed like for a long time, you talk to people, they didn't know about it. But after the Tarantino film, now everybody knows about it again. So it's interesting how pop culture goes. But anyway, so Paul is tested, and then his father is assassinated, and Paul flees because he, thinks they're going to be next, and he flees with his mother. He goes into the desert. He encounters the Fremen. The Fremen are, I like to call them the hillbillies of Arrakis, because they're hanging out in the desert, living very frugally. They're all fighters, they're scrapping for every piece, all that kind of thing. Yep. And, but Paul was trained in a very powerful manner of sound. Okay. And so he basically teaches the Fremen how to do this and to use it as a weapon. And it's something that the Emperor and the other factions that would seek to destroy House Atreides have trouble combating. And it's because they don't have the technology. They don't have that technology. And so he teaches the Fremen that, and along the way, he meets a Fremen woman who becomes his wife, played by Sean Young. If you remember Sean Young.
Yep.
Who will be forever remembered by the captain in Ace Ventura, who wound up being a man, right?
Yep.
Or who wound up, having some property down there.
Yes.
But yeah. So that's essentially it. He trains the Fremen. They go to battle. They wind up winning, and along the way, the Harkonnens. Harkonnens are sort of like the space mafia of the thing, and Baron Harkonnen. It's funny. I thought Baron Harkonnen was more grotesque in the film than he was in the books. Kenneth McMillan, who was once again an awesome British actor, he played Harkonnen, and Sting as his nephew.
Yeah. That was, I wasn't expected that to pop up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
man, we used to joke so much when I was young about and here's, I really like Sting a lot. I listen to his music, I dig it, I think he's great. But some of the acting was it wasn't that good, and everybody knows it, and he probably knows it too. But anyway, so they're out to do him in, and of course, he and Sting have the duel at the end, and Kyle MacLachlan, Paul Atreides, winds up killing him. That's the spoiler, but I think did I miss anything? I think I pretty much.
I think you got.
there are a lot of other little details I could probably talk about. I'll tell you the guy that played the other nephew of actually, here's an interesting tie-in. There's always six degrees of stuff, right?
Yep.
So the guy, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I think he was a Turkish actor, but he played the other nephew of Baron Harkonnen, the Beast Raban. Okay. And that guy, I want to say his name was Paul something. He wound up in a number of films, and as kind of a character player, a heavy, But if you've never seen the film of Midnight Express, okay, Midnight Express is an old Alan Parker movie from the late 70s that had Randy Quaid in it and John Hurt, okay, and he played in that the like Turkish officer who was torturing. Midnight Express was all about, Brad Davis, the main character, was trying to get on a plane, cross the border with hashish, and they caught him and they imprisoned him, because in Turkey that's almost a death sentence, And so anyway, he played this really evil officer in there, that guy. But the 6 Degrees I was talking about, I hope this is the kind of nerdy geeking out you're looking for on the show.
This is great.
I hope let me know if I go too far, because you've shot the gun. I'm running the race. I'm doing it, man. No, but so for me, like, music and soundtracks sometimes make, like, for me, they make films just a lot more memorable and impactful for me. So anyway, on Midnight Express, there was a very famous techno guy in the 70s and 80s, Giorgio Moroder. Giorgio Moroder was he's Italian, but he did a really famous piece called The Chase. Okay. And The Chase was the film music for Midnight Express.
Okay.
But it also happened to be the opening music for ICW wrestling in the 80s. Yeah. Which is where I first encountered Leapin' Lanny and Randy Savage and all of them. That was the music they used. And that song was very popular in the discos. So Midnight Express was around 78. ICW wrestling, you're talking about the early 80s. And they were using that music because it was still very popular. Anyway, that's the tie-in. See, aren't you excited, man?
That's interesting stuff there. And that's crazy. That's
somebody tuning in. What the fuck is this show? I could have been watching Matlock or something. Yeah. No, but anyway, yeah, Midnight Express is a really heavy movie. But the other thing I was going to say is regarding music, one of the things, and I didn't realize it when I was a kid, I didn't realize it at all. But one of the things that made it so powerful for me, that experience, was not only the Toto soundtrack, which was awesome, okay, but the prophecy theme. The prophecy theme that Brian Eno did for the film. And when I found out about that, I really started listening to a lot of Brian Eno. Okay. And Toto was on the radio anyway, because Rosanna and Africa were huge hits.
Yeah.
They were huge. And thing about Toto is, because like, you have to understand in the 80s, man, MTV, me being Gen X and MTV generation and all that, there was a lot of music that made it big on the radio directly as a result of having a video on MTV.
Yeah, and I think we should point out, in case we have any younger listeners or viewers, yes, MTV used to play music. So that's a big deal.
Right. Yeah.
They don't do that now, but they used to.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in many years, but yeah, and I think it was maybe 1981, 80 or 81. It launched somewhere.
I think 81, August of 81 is when it launched.
Yeah, but there were videos that were being made prior to that, that were airing on other things. I mean, like the Stones had a number of videos that had been on, in numerous venues and channels and stuff.
But MTV was like a rocket launch for that, I mean,
right. Yeah. So they were taking some of those older videos, you might have like some Elton John and Kiki D, some of the 70s stuff that they just had videos of. But then they started specifically making videos that were meant to be very, very, very popish, and would catch on. And so, and that's how a whole lot of artists got big. And the whole reason I even brought that up is because, because of the video thing, you had a whole lot of artists whose, music was great, and hopefully they got a great video out of it. And then the video got tons of play, and then it sold records, and it also, people love the video and they all know the video. Like a good example of that would be like Michael Jackson and Thriller, right? Stuff like that. I mean, there were many bands that, Huey Lewis, there were just a lot of good videos. But then along with that, you had a big percentage of those that got videos, like they had a one-hit wonder.
Yep.
And they did a video, and maybe people knew the video, and it was a good song, but they really didn't do much more than the one song. You know what I mean? And then there were others that had, like, you know, they probably knew somebody at MTV, or their uncle was one of the directors or something, and they got a deal, and they went on there, and you're like, man, what the shit is this? This is horrible, you know, God, you know. And they got on there, but then they didn't last very long because they didn't have much talent, or the band broke up or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then you had bands like Toto, bands that had, like, you know, one or two great videos, and if you went and bothered to listen to their albums, about 90% of that stuff was as good. They had really good music all the way through, you know. And a lot of people don't realize that, because there are some bands that are, you know, like a good example is Come On Eileen, right? Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Yep.
One hit wonder.
Yep.
I remember I got that album, you know, and I was like, man, this is really a cool song, and it's popular. Listen to the rest of the album, I was like, I don't know, man. It's not, you know, this wasn't that good. Right? I didn't think. I'll qualify. You know, I didn't think.
I know that song. I've never heard the whole album, so I couldn't tell you.
Right? Yeah. You know, it just wasn't that good. But you had other bands. You know, like another good example, Chicago. Chicago had a number of good videos in the '80s, especially when, you know, they went. They had some Chicago videos, but then when Peter Cetera went solo, he had a bunch of videos, and he did that. You know, I'm the man who will fight for his honor song that was in Karate Kid 2, you know, that got huge, you know, all that. So, but Chicago was a band that was very well established way before MTV was even thought of, right? And they'd been cranking out awesome stuff, you know, 10, 15 years before that. So they had all this good material, but Toto, you know, they were known for those two songs. And really, people didn't talk much more about the other stuff on their albums.
Okay.
And then they got them to do the soundtrack to Dune. And I personally thought that they should have gotten a lot more recognition for that. I mean, because the soundtrack is bomb. I mean, a lot of times I'll just put the soundtrack on here.
Okay.
Just, you know, while I'm working or something, you know, I mean, I still listen to it.
All right.
But aside from them, Brian Eno did the prophecy theme, you know, where they actually go out in the desert and he drinks the water of life. Oh, that was the part I didn't talk about in the film synopsis, was the worms. You know, the worms of Dune, which are native to Arrakis, right? Of course, you know, they'll kill you. You know, they'll run you over. They're huge. You know, they're monster worms. But the bile from the newborn worms is what they call the water of life. And it's the water of life that has to be imbibed in order for visions to happen. Now, I remember when Dune was written, right? Mid-60s.
Okay.
You take some stuff, you have visions.
Yep.
I'll just leave it there, right? So anyway, but, you know, the Bene Gesserit sisterhood, they drink the water of life, and they have the visions. As women, they are able to take in the water of life and do that. But it kills men. It kills men except for the promised one, the chosen one, the Kwisatz Haderach, right? And whoever, you know, so however many men had tried to drink this and become the one, you know, the Messiah, you know, there can be only one Highlander, you know, right? And you know, that is the one that winds up, you know, seeing the whole explosive truth, you know. I mean, so much of that smacks of, you know, dropping acid, you know, Timothy Leary having visions in the woods, you know, you think you're a mongoose or whatever, and you know, So anyway, I don't know. I think I got off on a tangent there, maybe, but.
Oh, you're good. I'll pull it back in. So this is what I want to ask you now. If you had been able to get a sequel back then, let's not do it 37 years later. Let's say you got a sequel back then. And like you said, I guess the movie covered the first 3 books. So would you have wanted to see the next 3 books put into a movie? I mean, what would you have wanted to see?
Yeah, you know, and I should, you know, because probably some Dune nerd will watch this and go, you know, well, it wasn't just the first 3 books. Is he nuts? You know,
You might be right about that.
I mean, it's really more of an amalgam of a lot of, you know, but the sort of the central story of Paul and Paul Atreides and the family and all that, it was sort of set down in the first three, you know, like a Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. You know, that has the central story in it, but you know, there might have been an element or here or there from the 4, 5, and 6 books, you know, but what would I have liked to see? Well, you know, you may be aware of this, I don't know, but there, I think it was in the late 90s. I think it was Italian television wound up doing a longer production of Dune than the original, you know, theatrical film for television, and they tried to encompass more than what was in the original film. They had more time, you know, it was television. William Hurt was in it.
Okay.
Yeah, he was kind of the main name. I forget the name of the guy that played Paul Atreides. He might have been big in Europe or something, but I'd never heard of him. But they did that, and it was probably maybe 2 or 3 years later they put out Children of Dune, which was the sequel to that. That being said, you know, for me there was a whole lot. It just wasn't, you know, an awesome production. You know.
Okay.
You know, and when I say awesome, I'm talking about something I'm not bored with at all. You know.
Right.
So I'm answering your question by saying, you know, with the sequel that they did, you know, 20 years ago or 25 or whatever it was, I didn't care for that too much. I mean, I didn't think it did the books justice, is I guess what I should say. What would I like to see?
Yeah.
What I personally would like to see is not so much a sequel, but a total and complete restoration of the original film. Okay, because that's what like if you look at the original film, it comes in just under, I think it's like 2 hours and 17 or something like that.
Yep.
Now that's what they had cut it down to. That's what the studios cut it down to. But you know, Lynch had a much longer film initially.
Okay.
And you know, it could be one of your viewers might correct me on something here, but it was somewhere in the late 90s maybe, and it was probably around the time they were doing the television thing, that Ted Turner recut the film, and I forget what length it wound up. I know it was over 3 hours, but you know, it was much longer.
Really?
And it had supposedly like Lynch's notes, or I thought Lynch, you know, kind of okayed it. I thought, I could be wrong about that, but I know that Ted Turner recut it, and then they aired it. But you know, the thing is, and this is kind of what I meant by doing a full good restoration. You know, you would see like scenes that you were very familiar with from watching the original film, but then where they put in the old footage, they didn't really, you know, color correct it and do all the stuff to match it. So, you know, if you had never seen any Dune before, you'd watch that longer version and go, you know, why is the film off there? You know, why does it not match? What you know, once again, I'm talking about the look of it, the color, not the continuity or anything. You know, like, you know, there was a, you know, there was a space gun right there, and now it's not on the table in its next shot. I'm not talking about that. It's so anyway, and also the sound wasn't, I mean, basically they just cut it together without doing any sound mixing or sweetening or anything like that, and it was very evident.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought, you know, like David Lynch became very associated with that, and especially since the film bombed. You know, people forget that, and by bombed I mean it just didn't make its money back It probably has at this point through video rentals and all that over years, but it bombed. It didn't do that well, and that's one of the reasons Lynch kind of scaled back. Did like Blue Velvet 2 or 3
Yeah,
years.
Blue Velvet came after this. I haven't seen that one, but
It's messed up, man. It's
I'm looking forward to it. I've seen Eraserhead and I've seen a couple others, but
but it'll change your life, man. Blue. I mean, once it's cheesy, it's, but it's. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I mean, there's like cheese that's like suck ass cheese, and then there's cheese that's like, man, I really want to keep watching this cheese.
So I was just looking up because I knew that Dune's actually coming out on 4K very soon.
The new version, you mean?
No. The David Lynch
the original,
Dune
okay.
is getting a 4K release from Arrow Video.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Boutique label,
Cool.
yeah. But looking at it, I'm not seeing a longer version. They have a bunch of documentaries and stuff like that, but I'm not seeing a longer version on there. So
yeah, I haven't read about that, but it doesn't surprise me since they filmed that newer Dune, and I think it was actually due out during COVID, and they're probably holding off on it to release it so they get as much ticket sales as they can get, But have you seen that at all? The trailer?
I don't watch trailers, but I know that it's coming out.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the trailer doesn't really tell you too much about it, but like it's got what's his name? Played Drax in Guardians.
Dave Bautista?
Yeah, it's got him in it. There are a few other people in there that you just recognize. And I'm really trying to reserve judgment because,
right.
Like just being, a Dune nerd and everything. I just don't want to go in there going, well, this has got to suck. It's not nearly as good as the original. It never will be. Right. I don't want to be that dude. But
so it's due out October 1st.
Does it say what the running time on it is?
Not yet.
Doesn't, yeah.
Not yet. But it's by Dennis, I don't know how you say his name, Villeneuve, who did like Blade Runner 2049, and that was a 2.5, almost 3-hour movie. So he's not afraid of a long movie. So
yeah, hey man, I'd love to see it, and see what they do with it because and I'm not totally certain about that story because I thought that like after they cut it and released it shorter that Lynch tried to disassociate himself from it, and I thought he even like Alan Smithy, what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought he even tried to put Alan Smithy on there and just not even, but everybody knew he directed it, and so it kind of stuck. That's my understanding of it, but I'd be eager to see the newer version. I mean, I'm always.
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of people like your Batista guy you were talking about. He's playing that Beast Rabin that you were talking about.
Raban, yeah.
Beast Rabin, yeah.
Yeah, I figured he probably had to be playing that role because he's just too buff to play Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but it could be, an awesome version, man. See, I thought that it's like one of those things that I caught the tail end of, and I was like, did I really see that? And then I went back looking for it, and I couldn't find it. But I thought I saw where they were doing Foundation, like a film of Foundation, Isaac Asimov. And if they're doing that, man, I mean, that's like on the scale of Dune.
Oh, okay. So that I'm not familiar with, so I do not know.
Yeah, like, well, Asimov, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Do you get? Are you into sci-fi pretty big or not super big? Okay.
Not a lot.
Well, and do you read a lot, or is it just movies for you? Or
I mean, I read, but I tend to read towards the horror genre.
Yeah. Well, if you are interested, Asimov was one of the most prolific writers ever. I mean, he wrote, I think, like over 500 books, and they were across genre. I mean, he wrote nonfiction, he wrote horror. Actually, I had little book of great little horror stories he did called Azazel, which they're really nice little quirky kind of Clive Barker-ish type stories, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was in the 80s. But he wrote horror. But he did a lot of sci-fi. I mean, he was more known for his sci-fi, and Foundation was sort of like his Fellowship of the Ring. I mean,
Yeah, see, like when you brought up Tolkien, like I know who he is, I know what he did, I know why he's important, but I've never read Lord of the Rings. I've never been able to get into the Lord of the Rings films. They're not
really,
for me.
no, man, it's like everybody's different, you know. I mean,
Yep.
it's just I mean, yeah, there's some things. It's funny because I mean, I guess everybody's like that, you know, where like I'll try something and like if right away I'm like, boy, this is killer, you know, then I stick with it. But sometimes I have to I have to keep trying for a while and then it catches on.
Okay.
You know, like I don't get it at first. Um, like in theater, like Sam Shepard.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like Sam Shepard was that way when I first started reading Sam Shepard plays. Whenever that was, I really just didn't understand them at all. You know, I mean, it took me rereading, Fool for Love and a few others, like probably two to three times, and I'm like, I'm just not getting this. You know, what is it that everybody's going on about? And I really learned a valuable lesson with that because I'm like, Chip, just because you don't get it doesn't mean that it sucks. You know, it's some things just need to simmer for a while and you get them, and then other
There
things
you
are
go.
like hitting you with a shovel upside the head. And
Yeah, that's true. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the remake, but let's say you got to remake this on your own. Who would you cast? As obviously there's way too many characters to cast everyone, but you definitely need to cast Paul Atreides.
man, dude, no, I've got it. You know who I think would be a great Paul Atreides?
Okay.
And he has the acting chops to make it really good, and he's probably still he might be moving a little out of the age range at this point. Is Jake Gyllenhaal?
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's a tremendous actor. I think he's I don't know if I'd say he's underrated. I think people know he's a good actor, but yeah, like if you haven't seen Prisoners.
Okay, so the guy who directed Dune, the new Dune, directed Prisoners.
Yeah, right, Villeneuve, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Prisoners, and the other one that really stood out from Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler. Yep.
Yeah, I was like, I watched that and I was like, damn,
Yeah.
But I think he's fantastic, and but I think he would be great because he looks the part too.
Okay.
He looks the part. Duke Leto, not sure about. I'd say Russell Crowe, but he's looking pretty rough these days, man. I like Russell Crowe.
Maybe he could get into the shape for it though. These actors, they'll do stuff to get into the role. Like he definitely looked roughed and unhinged. The last movie I saw him in.
That's what I was thinking about. I was like, man.
But I think he did that for the role though. I don't think that's just his normal look. I think he was going for a certain look for that character.
Well, my wife and I watched that, and then first 10 minutes, we're like, is that Russell Crowe? It doesn't look like a beautiful mind here, man. What goes on? So, then that was a pretty dark movie. But yeah, dude. I'm not sure. The Paul's mother. Regarding the Bene Gesserit sisterhood, and his Paul's mother's mentor or mentoress or whatever. I think Tilda
Swinton.
Yeah, I think she would really rock that role out. The Sting role, you need a really sort of good asshole for that, because you just need somebody who's a real ratty douche,
Yeah, I think Jason Momoa is playing him in the remake.
Playing the Sting role?
I think that's who they got. What's the Sting's name? Was his name Duncan? I cannot remember.
No, Duncan was Duncan was Paul's good friend who got killed during
Okay.
the wars.
Okay, I
Yeah,
know you're talking about then.
yeah, Duncan, Idaho.
Yeah, that's who
That was,
Jason Momoa was playing. Then my bad.
yeah. I was gonna say because Jason Momoa as Fade would be. Well, number one, I don't think people would want to see Jason Momoa be like an evil dude who gets killed anyway. Because there's too many women, swooning over Aquaman and all that stuff. It probably wouldn't be a good, move on. But no, and another interesting deal. The guy that played Duncan Idaho in the original, and I'm trying to remember his name. He was a tremendous actor, but I think he died pretty young of like a brain tumor, if I remember right. And but he was really a good actor, and he was in. You remember those two huge Civil War movies from the '90s, like Gettysburg and Gods and Generals? You remember those?
By name only. I remember seeing the titles, but I've never watched them.
Yeah, he was in. I want to say Gettysburg, and he was great in that. He was really a good actor, man. I mean, that was really a shame. But he played. I forgot all about Duncan Idaho, but he played Duncan Idaho in that. And and you know who else I forgot about? Who I absolutely adore as an actor is Brad Dourif.
Okay. Yeah. It was fun seeing him pop up.
Oh, I love his stuff. I mean, he's just. I saw where he was doing I can't remember if it was a Pinter play or something, but he was doing it with Amanda Plummer, Christopher Plummer's daughter.
Yeah.
Who was in Fisher King and she was in Pulp Fiction. She was the
in the diner scene. She's with Tim Roth
exactly,
in the diner scene. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he's been in so many good movies. Brad Dourif has, man. And he was in Blue Velvet. When you watch Blue Velvet, yeah, dude, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say after watching. You know what I mean? It's funny because it's like it's a long time since I saw it for the first time. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But I'm always interested to see, what's this person going to think about this, man? Because when I first saw this movie, it was fucked up.
Really, well, I mean, that's kind of how it always is going into a Lynch film for the first time because you don't know what you're going to get.
Dude, it is, and it's weird because I just love the quirk, I don't know why. A lot of people can't stomach it, after Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart came out. I loved Wild at Heart. I thought Willem Dafoe in that playing Bobby Peru was one of the sickest roles I've ever seen. But that movie just kind of, just went away. You don't hear about it anymore.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one just because I love a good Nick Cage performance.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it was kind of like Nicolas Cage before he got super crazy and big. I mean, he was big, but he wasn't like Con Air big, and
right,
Face Off big and all that. And but yeah, all of those films, Lost Highway.
I watched some of that one, but I think I was way too young, and I was like, I don't know what the hell is going on. So I'm gonna look forward to revisiting that one.
Well, here's the thing, like, whenever films get reviewed, some of your viewers might know this, I don't know, but you got to understand that when films get reviewed, half the time, critics have an agenda with it, right? Whether it's they know some people on it. It used to be, that you'd have a guy standing outside paying the critics, say something good about the film. Now, critics would never tell you that. They'd never admit it.
Right.
But it's really true. And, you'd like to think that people really well known as critics like Roger Ebert before he died, wouldn't do that. Who knows? I don't know.
Right.
But the thing is, it's like when critics do that, if they said, like, say, for instance, a critic said, man, Lost Highway, this movie was just terrific. It had so many good points and everything. They would probably get slammed because not many critics agree with that. So there's kind of this like communal agreement a lot of times with criticism. And I mean, in school, that's what I did a lot of, my undergrad was in English and film, and it was very thick with criticism, so And I got bored with it very quickly because I don't want to talk about, I don't want to critique films like, this film bad, this film good,
Right.
I don't want to do that. I want to look at films and say, well, why did that one have the impact it did? And a lot of times they have an impact on you and you don't know why they have an impact. To me, those are the most exciting ones. And a lot of Lynch's stuff, like Lost Highway is a great example. You watch a film like that and you're watching it, you're going, man, my mind is trying so hard to wrap around what's going on here, and I just don't understand it. But for some reason, I feel like very unbalanced and unsettled. Like there's something that feels off, and it's putting me in an awkward position. So when that happens, with a movie or a piece of art or whatever, it's like you have a choice. You can either say like, well, I don't feel comfortable, I'm going over here and looking at this. You can do that, or you can kind of just chill for a minute,
Yep.
and just breathe into it and see what happens. Maybe we'll go somewhere new. And to me, that's always the most exciting stuff. But I saw Lost Highway in the theater. I remember that's how I learned about Rammstein, was from Lost Highway. Because they Rammstein had a couple of songs in Lost Highway, and I remember going out of there going, man, that fucking rocked. What was that song? And then I went and looked at the soundtrack, and I was like, Rammstein, never heard of them. I'm going to see Rammstein next year, man. I can't wait.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah, man. It's like, it's like unsettling stuff. Mulholland Drive was that way.
Another one that at the age I saw it, I was like, I can't wait to watch these again now. Put it that way.
Yeah, because it's just like, why is it that we always need the same thing? We all know the old, the pattern,
right?
The story must have beginning, middle, and end, and it's absolutely has to, crescendo here and then decrescendo and then a big crescendo and then, and then we end on a good note and everybody goes home and has dinner, and it's like, that's great. I like that, but I don't necessarily want that all the time.
Right.
It's kind of like Indian food. I don't want it all the time, but when I want it, I really want it.
Yep.
And so, but I think that's really where Lynch kind of lives. Do you listen to a lot of music?
Yeah.
Not as much.
Yeah.
Man, if you're listening to some stuff and being like a horror guy, you might like this. I don't know, but there's a guy, Scott Walker. Okay. And nobody knows him anymore, but he was as big as the Beatles in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
In England. Yeah, he was huge. He was with a band called the Walker Brothers. And if you listen to a lot of that older music, some of it's pretty good, but then there's a lot of cheese going on. Because that was, there was just cheese going on back then, But then as his career goes along, he gets less and less and less pop, and he starts losing followers. All the little teeny boppers that loved him back in the 60s, and he was a heartthrob and all this, they just kind of drop off the planet. And then he starts getting more and more avant-garde until like the last 4 or 5 albums he did are like so like, dense and dark.
Yeah.
You're just like, man, shit, this is the same guy,
Right.
And and to me, that's like the really fascinating stuff, Not some dude who's singing like, teeny bopper songs in the 50s and he's still doing it 50 years later. It's kind of like,
yeah, I'd say for a mainstream reference to that, it was kind of mind blowing for me when I found out Man for Man, the guy who did Do Wah Diddy, is the same guy who does Blinded by the Light later on.
Right.
When I found that out, I was like, oh, this is the same person?
Oh, yeah.
That group? I couldn't believe it.
Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Yeah. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did covers too, man. I remember they did a cover of Demolition Man, which was a huge hit for, or actually, someone they may have written Demolition Man. I can't remember, but Grace Jones, you remember Grace Jones?
Yep.
Yeah, she made Demolition Man. That was a huge hit for her. It was a cover.
Okay.
But that was a huge hit in the 80s for her. And the video of it's really cool, man. If you ever get a chance to check that out. But Anyway, sorry, man. I'm kind of diverting you
You're
off the
good.
music
Good.
here,
So,
but
all right, we're gonna pull it back on track. This is what I want you to do.
okay.
For anyone who maybe doesn't want to watch a David Lynch fan, maybe someone's not a big sci-fi fan, I want you to sell them on why they should take a chance on this Dune, this version, because the new one's coming out. Some people will take a chance on that, but why should they go back and watch the original Dune?
You know, man, I don't know. It's why should they do it? I don't know. Why do we do anything? Well, you know, I'm always a little suspicious of, you know, like, yeah, man, you really need to check this out, you know. But when you say that to people, it's kind of like, you know, you're sort of saying you need to like what I like or whatever. Um, I'm sort of a big believer that people will dig and find what they like, or they'll
True.
just do nothing and they won't go anywhere, you know.
But sometimes you enjoy stuff that you know your friend never heard of, and you want them to discover it with you. Not just that you want them to like, but you want them to take a chance.
Sure. I mean, all I can do is speak from my own point of view, you know, and say that like Dune had a huge impact on me. It's a very entertaining film. Um, you know, if you watched it by today's mentality and the way we live today, you're probably going to have some laughs, especially with some of the performances. Um, you know, it's to be enjoyed. I mean, it's entertainment. Probably Dune is the most light and entertaining of Lynch's films. You know, like Dune is a film that, you know, you could probably take, you know, a woman on a date with, right? But I'm not going to take any woman to Eraserhead or Elephant Man, you know. I can tell you right now, she's going to be like, well, I think I'm done for the night. Take me home. You know, they killed him at the end, you bastard, you know. you know, or you know, taking some woman to like, you know, Lost Highway. I mean, or one of those, like, you know. But anyway, it's yeah, you know, why should they do it? You know, because it's enjoyable. You know, it's. I mean, you and I are film nerds, right? So you know, we're pretty much willing to try anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, you know, me being my age, I have what's called a 10-minute rule, which means that in the first 10 minutes, if it's sucking, then a lot of times I'll turn it off. And the reason I do that is because life's short and there's about 200 other movies waiting, you know. But
that's true.
But you know, that doesn't mean you don't try to watch it. For a lot of people, they probably just don't care to go back and watch older movies. You know, they don't love movies the way you and I do. You know, for sci-fi fans, you know, if you're going to say, "Hey, I'm into sci-fi really big, reading or film," to me, there's just no excuse not to watch Dune.
Right? Yeah, Dune would be a staple of that genre.
Cornerstone. Yeah. So there's that reason if you are like, you know, I'm a sci-fi buff or whatever. But yeah, just the fun of it. I mean, Dune is fun. That's the thing. A lot of Lynch's films are not fun. You know, he wants you to feel unsettled.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a really common thread. You know, in a lot of Dune there is unsettling stuff too. Like there's nothing pleasant about Baron Harkonnen picking boils off his face.
No. Yeah.
Crap, like, I mean, so there's some like gross out stuff in there and all that, but not quite like a Eraserhead. You know, the tone is different. And,
right.
The other thing about most of the other films is there isn't as much of a well, no, that's actually not true. I was going to say there isn't as much of a hero story, but really there is in Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart. So, you know, I couldn't really say that. And honestly, Elephant Man is a really big hero story. I mean, that's, you know, the dude just living with, you know, the way he had to live. I mean, I don't know if I could do it, you know. So it's, I don't know. I hope that's a good answer, man, for you. I you know, I mean,
so look, everybody out there, just take a chance on Dune. It's streaming on HBO Max. If you're a physical media nut, it's coming out on 4K from Arrow Blu-ray. So I checked that out. There's like 3 or 4 different versions you can buy. So depending on the amount of special features, I think they got steel books, they got all kinds of stuff. So it's definitely worth checking out.
Hey man, are you okay talking horror for a little bit?
All right, what do you want to talk?
Yeah, I mean, are you? Well, I was just interested. You said you're big into horror. Like, what is? what do you like a lot with that? Is it
In my Jason pillow, I'm a slasher guy.
your slasher dude?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like my favorite is probably The Exorcist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So by the time your episode's out, I should have an Exorcist episode out. I've already recorded it, so it should be out. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you kind of like the sort of traditional sort of terror slasher.
That's what I grew up on. I mean, recently I love Hereditary. I love Midsommar. So everything Ari Aster's put out so far, he's only done 2 movies, but I love them both.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not slasher at all. So,
dude, I tell you, earlier tonight, I was telling you about on Criterion, they flush out a lot of movies,
right.
And so what they'll do is they'll batch them all that they're getting rid of, and they'll say leaving on the 30th, right?
Right.
So I try to hit those before they leave. I wound up watching this British film tonight, and you would probably dig it. It's called a Kill List. Kill List.
Yeah,
and
I have heard about that for a few years, and I have not taken that plunge yet on it.
And it's kind of a mixture of horror and sort of psychological stuff. But it was really,
what's that?
It was different, man. I mean,
that's Ben Wheatley, right?
Ben Wheatley, yeah. It was. I don't think I've seen any of his other films, but if they're like that, I'll probably be checking them out because, I mean, what was nice was it wasn't just blood and guts, kind of, point a camera on it. I mean, he really kind of had sort of the point of view of the camera and the way the main character was thinking, you could tell was off. Like he was psychologically impaired.
Okay.
The guy,
Yeah.
And so you think that what you're seeing is what is actually happening, but a lot of it is in his mind and stuff, but you don't know what's what.
Right. You get that classic unreliable narrator.
Yeah, and it all gets jumbled together, but then the end of it had this sort of I don't even know what. I mean, if you like Midsummer, you'd probably dig, but it had it was almost an homage to Wicker Man.
Okay.
Well, the end of
yeah,
it just had this very pagan thing at the end, and but yeah, that was one of those movies. Like I wasn't expecting it to do that. See, I love it when it's like that. You just put a movie on, like, well, let's see what happens. And then by the end of it, you're like, damn. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like I didn't think that was coming.
Yeah, that's a good feeling there.
Yeah. But yeah. Well, and what was funny too, I was at the store and they had this like a 2 for $10 chicken thing going on. So I bought this chicken and I'm sitting there eating chicken during it, and I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna really lose it, And but yeah. Anyway, if you get it,
it's one that's on my watch list. But yeah, I've heard about it for a few years and I just haven't watched it.
Now, do you like doing all the old classics too?
Some I have like the old Universal classics. I like the 60s, like the Hammer style.
Yeah.
I haven't really been able to get into. It's like I've tried a couple and it's just not for me, I guess.
Well, some of those are so dated, man. I mean, they're is that why they don't work too well for you? Just because they feel dated or cheesy?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Hammer has its own thing going on.
Yeah.
Maybe have you ever heard of this film, The Changeling?
Yeah, I own that on Blu-ray.
Yeah, the George C. Scott movie. Yep. Yeah, that's one of my favorite old school horror deals. And,
that's just a straight up good ghost story there. Yeah.
And the original Haunting, that holds up too. That's pretty creepy.
Yep. I like the original Haunting. I like the original House on Haunted Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like everything Vincent Price though. I've noticed. I've been trying to watch more Vincent Price, and I don't like all of his stuff like I thought I would.
Well, the truth is there. Yeah, he kind of there in the 60s especially just got into a lot of grade B cheese,
Yeah.
and some of that was his association with Roger Corman, because Roger Corman was doing his Poe cycle in the 60s. And so
Right.
For me, the finest film that came out of that was the Pit and the Pendulum version that Vincent Price was in.
I remember seeing that on DVD a lot, but I never watched it. So
yeah, that was probably the best one. But they tried to do a bunch of others, and they had who was in one of those early on was Jack Nicholson. He was in Twice Told Tales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was Twice Told. It was early Corman, because Corman really kind of, if he hadn't put Nicholson into that, probably Nicholson wouldn't have gotten into Easy Rider and a bunch of other stuff that springboarded him into later stuff like The Shining and Cuckoo's Nest and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Corman has, I think he's still living. I think he's almost 100. But he's just had a huge influence. People don't even realize. But,
yeah, Corman was just on the Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Man, I didn't know Joe Bob Briggs was still doing.
Yeah, Shudder brought it back. If you don't, the horror streaming service Shudder, yeah, they have The Last Drive-In. That was the season finale, but it'll be back.
Oh, cool, man.
So yeah, I suggest you sign up for Shudder then, because they got about 3 or 4 seasons on there, and they do it just like the old days where they have body counts and kill counts and.
Oh man, I might do that. Yeah, I've put BritBox on Amazon Prime, and I've been watching some stuff on that, but it's getting to the point where I'm like, how many Agatha Christie deals can you watch? And everything. I mean, they're great, but yeah, so I might check that out, man. Yeah, I'm always interested to hear what other people are checking out, because because I just don't know. I'm just always interested, but yeah, and the thing is for me, like, it's just finding really good stuff. It's so trial and error,
Yeah.
Did you go to Quiet Place 2?
No.
Did you like the first one?
I thought it was okay. I don't think it was as good as everyone else makes it out to be. So yeah. So
yeah, the second one was. I thought it was good. Yeah, and I like them. I wouldn't say it's like life changing. Like Silence of the Lambs worthy or something. But
see, there you go. My favorite movie.
Oh yeah.
That's my number one. So
is it?
Yeah.
Probably for horror, that's probably mine too. Actually, it's hard to beat that, man.
That's my number one overall. Like my favorite movie of all time is Silence of the Lambs. So
yeah. Did you ever check out Manhunter?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? You talked about Lord of the Rings earlier. I'm gonna tell you a story. My mom was in the store when it's probably 2001. It was the year first Lord of the Rings was coming out at that December. But this was early in the year, and my mom went to the store to get me something. She was in the horror aisle, and she started talking to this guy, and he recommended Manhunter, which I'm glad he did because I had never heard of it at that point. But he's like, man, if he's into this, your son, tell him he's going to be excited. Lord of the Rings is coming out this year. I'm like, they don't go together. Because I like Manhunter does not mean I'm going to like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that is a weird, that is kind of a weird association. Cause,
yeah, I've never forgotten that story. That
like Hannibal Lecter and Frodo. I mean, those doesn't really work, man. Yeah.
All right, Chip, we're going to wrap this one up. We can talk off this. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, thank you so much for having me on, Josh. I hope it was what you were looking for.
Oh yeah, it was fun. So tell everyone where they can find you online. If you got a YouTube channel. Yeah,
you can find Chip Sebastian. If you want to email me about anything, it's just chipsebastian@hotmail. I've got an Instagram thing, Chip Sebastian, Facebook, Chip Sebastian. I'm pretty easy to find. I'll have my website up pretty soon. One thing that I didn't mention that I have been doing a lot more of since COVID is my my booth here, if you can see it. This is a
okay.
voice booth, and so I've been doing a lot of commercials and starting to do more audiobooks and things like that. So I'll have a website up soon that will have that as well as other things on it. But the short film, once again, it may change names by the time it finally gets out, but right now it's called Per Annum, and I star in it along with Fred Zieglin and Don Samandel directing it. But it's, especially if you like serial killer horror type stuff, it's going to be a tight 12 to 13 minute film.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's a short, and so it'll be coming out really soon. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on the show, and I hope you'll let me do it again sometime. And yeah, and talk. Next time we can talk about what you want to talk about.
All right. As always, you guys can follow the show. We're at ynfmoviepod on Twitter, Instagram. You can watch this video on YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your podcast. If you're going on Apple, leave that coveted 5-star review if you like what we're doing here. Be sure to come back next week. I'll have a new movie, a new guest, and who knows, that may become your next favorite movie. You guys take care. I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Josh. Have a good night, man.
You too.